the Craftsmans that are hydros from the 1990s, and I believe some of the newer ones are coming out with these cast irons also. This is what you want. The stamped metal front ends, you can run them, but you need to weld and reinforce them over and over again, and they still will end up blowing out. Where they blow out is they blow out right on this seam right here on the pressed steel front ends. And what it does is the spindle torques, and this top piece here all of a sudden splays out, and next thing you know, it pops this top piece off and the whole spindle drops out when you're not looking. Or it twists, and the tractor just kind of drives itself in whatever direction it wants to. The other thing is, I get a lot of people saying, it's a square front, why the triangle? And the reason for that was because I didn't want to plow stuff ahead of me. I wanted it to naturally go off to the sides. And so by making it with the angle coming up and the two sides coming off, it allowed water and mud an area to escape one side or the other, rather than just plowing up and making a big giant ball in front of it. At this point, I'm going to get in and drop that belt out, and we're going to see if we can pull the spark plug and make the motor turn over. Oh, I thought of one more thing that needed to be in this front end section, and that's this. This was upgraded in one of my very first fail videos with this. And what happens is this particular bar going across is really, really thin metal, and it's not very good high grade. And the moment you start applying any kind of torque sideways on bigger tires, this bends, and it bends up in, and it smashes into your drive pulley, making horrible noises. And it actually happened to me live in a video. I'll see if I can post a link for that. And I ended up welding this on in order to set it up. Now, I've had a lot of people end up changing this idea out for angle. And I tried this once myself. And I ended up going back to my old bar. And here's the reason. I messed up. And what I ended up doing was I ended up welding it on like this. And what that ended up doing was creating a catch scoop that caught everything. And it would rig up on stuff, it would catch things, and it would rack my steering and everything else. So what the guys have figured out over the years is you need to put it on like this, which means you hold it up to the bar, you tack it a couple of times on the ends here, tack it a couple of times on the other side, and what that does is it gives you a skid plate so that it comes up and over the top of stuff. As you can see there, you just glide across it versus scooping in like a bulldozer. So I wanted to show you guys this. I got a blast heater here aimed at the transmission, and the reason being is I'm pretty sure that it is full of water and therefore it's frozen inside. And I wasn't quite sure until all of a sudden I started seeing that come out of it. That's a puddle of water that's actually draining from this. So there's probably a crack in the case somewhere, unfortunately, but we'll see. Maybe it'll unthaw and come loose. All I know is right now it free rolls. Now, you guys asked me about bracing, and the real reality is this is your stock bar here, and I've bent them a couple of times, but you know, they're not too hard to bend back. This is the one that sucks. And so what I ended up doing was I welded in a triangular piece on both sides and then welded down across for where the bolt goes. And that's the one that I always ended up breaking. So I welded that triangle piece in, never had an issue since. I do have just the regular stock mounts on the rear, and there are people that have made pillow block bearing catches on the back. I'll post up some photos of Donald's, and his is amazing. You really should take a look at his builds. And they put pillow blocks on either side, and I think that's really awesome. Not sure how that affects getting the transmission in and out, because I can literally drop and swap an entire transmission in a matter of minutes with this setup. That's part of why I like it. But for now, we're gonna keep blasting this with heat, see if that top pulley will free up. The rear already freed up, so I know it was just ice on the inside. And I've got another curiosity thing going on here. So remember that hole, the belt's rust solid and then you can't get anything to go? I pulled the belt, pulled the spark plug wire out, and there we go. So we've confirmed we have spark and we have compression. So as soon as I get a little bit further into this transmission, we'll see what we can do. Hi guys, Redneck Computer Geek here, and welcome to the first of a few different teardown videos of Maine Mud Mower. A lot of people have asked why it is I'm tearing Maine Mud Mower apart. And the basic straightforward answer is I want to start fresh with the mud mower world and with something that is new and exciting. Maine Mud Mower has had its frame bent 3 different times while plowing. I've had to take sledgehammers to it. I've had to re-weld different parts of it. It's on its 4th transmission right now. It never actually blew the Spicer Bomb transmission. If you haven't seen that, it's where I created a locker by melted down zinc. I'll post a link for that down in the description. But it's time. It's bent, it's permanently warped, and we're going to tear down all the parts and take a look at it along the way. That being said, I'd like to go and start off with every death comes life. And part of that is that parts from Maine Mud Mower, certain parts are going to go into the Mud Wizard build. But the other part is, with the death of a YouTube legend, I want to see life go into some other channels on YouTube. The first one that I'd like to go and give a shout out to is a channel called Lawn Gone. And I'll post up a picture of his rig right now. I've been following this build. At the time of making this video, he only has about 225 subscribers. He's a really good guy, really down to earth, very concise on how he does his build, and he has a lot of really good ideas. And he's going to be running with another favorite YouTuber of mine, Doc Sprocket, and they're going to be going out, they're going to be doing romps this year. And I really support them, and I hope you guys do too. So, check down in the description. You're going to find a link to his channel. Go to it, subscribe, tell him I sent you. The other thing I'd like to pass on is just another bit of YouTube knowledge for those of you with smaller channels. One thing that YouTube does that most people don't realize is that if you have a small channel, if you do not have links in your description to A, your channel, B, another video, or C, both of those and or somebody else's channel, what YouTube automatically decides is to send the next video over from a larger channel. So if you're at 2,000 subscribers, then the next video that it shows for the next view is from, say, a 5,000 subscriber. And then the next one from him, if he doesn't have stuff in his description, ends up going to a 10,000. From there to a 50,000, from there to 150,000. So, if you have a group of you that make videos, or you have a group of friends that work together, make sure in your description you are always posting up links to a video you like of theirs, links to their particular YouTube channel, and make sure you post up a few links to things that were covered in your video. Otherwise, YouTube assumes that you're not worth watching anymore, and they bump it up to the next bigger guy. That's the way YouTube works. That's how come the person who ends up with the most views happens to also have the most subscribers. Keep that in mind when you're making videos. Post up links to the friends of yours that have other YouTube channels in your description. Keep it within your group. That being said, let's move on to breaking it down. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to rip this hood straight off. This hood is junk. It was a really major learning experience for me, and I have come up with revisions on how I'm going to build the hood for Mud Wizard. We'll be covering that, but the Mud Wizard build is going to be done during the atltf.com build off. It starts on February 1st. Also check in the description for the link to the atltf.com. Go there, sign up, register, do the build off with me. Let's get all kinds of people in it this year. So I don't want to destroy the hood too much because it does have working fog lights in it that are the old school style fog lights, as you can see right there. Now they're fiberglassed in, and I'm going to have to cut them out or smash them, but they're still usable for later projects. So probably going to seem stupid in one of those tips and tricks categories, but I really like these 1-gallon gas tanks, and the reason being is because when you're dealing with draining out carbs, they fit right here where a lot of gas tanks don't, which makes dropping this down in much easier. The other thing is that because they're so small, you can fit it in like this and then set the fuel line in and then up and over it and kitty corner it on the ground. So we're going to see if we can do it on video, but guaranteed I'll mess it up just because it's video. So we're going to undo this, and you want to undo it to the point you start to see gas seeping, and pull it and set it in the nozzle, and then down in between. So there we go. We'll get the gas tank drained out, and then we're going to take the tank out, and I'll show you guys a little bit of the electrical in the system. So this is the type where you've got the hose going through the firewall section over here that they kind of have in, and you get these little crimp-on connections. Now those you just put on with a pair of pliers, but what happens is a lot of times the rubber here ends up sealing onto these, and if you got a set of these slide pliers, you can grab on with the center and give it just a slight twist like that, and now it'll pull off by hand. There we are. So from here we can feed this back through, pull our tank up through the top, and go from there. Okay, so we're going to freehand this one with the camera so that hopefully you can see everything. This right here, this comes out from underneath your flywheel. Now this is your diode side, and this is your headlights. Now the way that you remember which one is which is diode, dead battery. Diode, dead battery. So if this does not connect to your battery side of your starter solenoid, your battery will never charge and it will be dead. That's how you remember. This is headlights. Now when you come down here on this Briggs setup,
you're going to have these two wires here. This, if you have a solenoid, an electronic control solenoid in your carb, this is what goes to it. If you've done a solenoid delete, this is dead and it doesn't matter. This is your black kill wire. This is what goes to your kill toggle. If this grounds out at any point, it kills the motor. It will not have spark, therefore it does not fire, and it dies. But when you go through this connection, your red diode wire turns blue. So that blue wire comes back through, and then you connect that to the red side of things further up here. So that red, if you have an inline voltmeter, this red goes to the voltmeter. That voltmeter goes to a fuse, and from that fuse you come around to your solenoid. So you have your positive side of your solenoid, which goes to your battery, your red diode lead. Remember, diode, dead battery. Your red diode lead goes here, and this side goes to your starter. And that's this big red wire coming out of here, comes back across and goes into your starter here. Now, if you have a 3-prong starter, you have your solenoid. If you have a 3-prong solenoid, you've got 2 big, 1 small, then you have 1 for the battery, 1 for the starter, and your third one you put positive to because the solenoid is self-grounding. Now if you have a 4-prong solenoid, battery, starter, one of them gets positive voltage, the other one you put a line that grounds it to the chassis. And that acts as your ground for your solenoid. So up here, up in behind, all we got is just positive coming from the battery side of the solenoid, going to another wire which goes down and hits the solenoid on one of the small terminals. This up here, this is our toggle. Alright, so up inside here, we've got our toggle switch, and that right there goes to the black wire that goes underneath the coil, so that's coil kill. And then this down here, this toggle switch, goes to the headlights, that wire I showed you next to the diode. There you go. And we'll show you what the panel looks like from up here. This is my winch control. Headlights. Push button start. Kill. Now remember, if you use a regular off-the-shelf on-off switch, off is on is off. Alright, so a lot of people ask about the gas pedal setup and how it's bolted in. But it basically isn't anything different than how your normal setup is. This is the through cable, and it's just got a regular flathead here. But what I did was I took the spring and I looped the spring through the whole thing. So in order to put the spring on, you have to actually pull the whole screw out. So from there it drops out. Hi guys, Redneck Computer Geek here. So, this is going to be a very sobering video, so I figure it's... So in the interest of full disclosure, it took me, the guy I got this from, and my son Mateo to load this. I'm going to try and do it by myself. We've got the video camera rolling just in case I need footage to prove how stupid I was. This thing outweighs me about 2.5 to 1. Let's try it. Redneck Computer Geek here. We got another freebie. This one's a big one. It's huge. It is a Stanley garden tractor with a 5-speed 21 horsepower. Now, there's an issue with this particular tractor that is already known to me, but we will get to that in a sec. This is an interesting tractor, and this is why it is I really enjoy tractor hunting and doing the free ads and talking with people. Apparently Stanley made some of these garden tractors for about 3 years. They were really large attempts at getting into the market. It is a Murray GT that has been rebranded as a Stanley. If you look it up on partstree.com, and I'll include a link down in the description, basically they made a series of these that were hydros, and then in 2003, which is this model, they made a GT series that had 820 rear ends in it. Solid 1-inch axles and everything. So we're going to take a look at this. I'm going to grab the camera, do a once-over. There's some interesting and unique little things about this machine, and then we'll see whether it'll even start. Here we go. Alright, so it's got 4 good tires on it, one of which had a slow bit of a leak when I first started on the other side, and I was able to get it to come back to life and reseal it. So that's a good thing to start with. I'm not sure why the muffler guard is missing. That's not exactly a normal thing to be off, but hopefully I can put a piece of metal across there easy enough to cover that. Now when I come around here, this is a cute little thing. And yes, that is a nail through there, bent around. And on the other side, hopefully you can see it. Let me switch modes here. The bearings are actually still there with the rollers. Apparently this came off of a jack for car use. And the jack was blown out and the guy threw it on there. I thought that was an interesting idea. And that's also what's down in here. See if I can switch it in again. Right down in there, if you can see, that's off of a car jack. This is all a little messed up, but I did notice, if I can get this here, that the blades are in good condition. They seem to turn nice. The edge is a little bit dull, but the blades, all 3, seem to be in pretty decent condition. We may end up doing a video on the deck here, depending on what we do. Pulleys definitely have been replaced recently. That's always nice to see. He did warn me that apparently the wing nuts that are for this on the other side are not holding. So we're going to have to take a look at that and see what we can do. And as you can see the bubbling here in this tire, I remounted the edge bit and it seems to be doing okay now. We'll check it in the morning and go from there. He had the piece for the hatch here. You end up seeing this missing on a lot of Murrays, and it's because people go to do electrical work on the inside here, and they have to get to this starter solenoid and pull all the rats out of here and stuff, and then from there you can get to other things. And the hood, I mean not the hood, obviously the seat. The seat on the back is in good condition and not rusted up. Looks like somebody replaced it recently. Springs are good. The battery is absolutely shot. I've got another one already on the charger. A 400 cranking amp that used to be in the mud mower that we're going to throw in here to try this today. It's always interesting to see on these Murrays that these shift knobs for some reason survive and seem to do really well, but yet for some reason these foot peg rubbers are always missing and they're always worn right off. I don't know why that is on a Murray. And see, at least that one's the one it's supposed to be. And now the next question is, what's under the hood? Now it should be a 21 horsepower. Dun da da da. Whoop. Okay, well apparently that hood is loose. we have a 21 horsepower Intech. Looks as if nobody's been in it for a while. It's got some nesting going on here. I'll probably pull this off just to double check there isn't something in underneath. Because if you've seen my video about rat's nests and engines that have been sitting, you know that they can overheat an engine really quick and blow a connecting rod right through the side of the motor. For anybody who's curious, this is your vacuum pump. And you've got your lead here that goes to your gas. You've got this lead here which goes to the top of your overhead valves, your valve cover here, and then this lead here is your pump side that goes into the carburetor itself. You see that ass a lot, so I figured I'd point that out. While we're here, let's see what kind of motor oil we have in it. Looks as if we've got decent oil. That's actually in moderately good condition on the low side though. And the gas is pretty well empty, but just enough for us to see if we can fire it off. Oh, did notice one more thing. Down here on the starter, hopefully this will work long enough for us to fire it. That's a tad bit concerning. Also, it looks like something chewed through that or somebody mangled it with a pair of pliers. So we'll see what we can do there. Well, that's a little nasty. We'll set that aside for now. Alright, so we got our clutch brake down, battery booster on, full throttle, pull the choke. Let's see if miracles happen. Nope. And that right there is probably why the service panel was off on this machine. I can hear the starter solenoid trying to kick over, but nothing happening. Let's pull that little connection on the side of the starter a bit. So what we're going to do at this point is we're going to try and jump directly across that starter. It doesn't look very good, but we'll see what we can rig together. Alright, so this has a very high level of sketchy to it, but we're going to take this and we're going to set it on here and try and hold it without that contact holding anything on the side, and then clamp this to ground and see what happens. Alright, as scary as it is, I think this might actually start if I can get the brake down. Okay, brake down, safety switch off. Nothing safe about this. I can smell gas, lots of sparks, here we go. Or not. Well, it's thinking about it. Alright, so because I can't manage to be in 3 places at once, we're going to hold the spark plug here. We're going to hold the clip here onto the side of the motor, and I've got a clamp holding down the clutch pedal slash brake on the other side. Okay, we've got spark. So at this point, we know the spark plug will work in this coil. We know the brake push down is setting off the safeties. We're going to add a little bit of starter fluid to it and see what it does. Oh, we thought about it. Alright, so after a thorough inspection of the spark plugs, decided to put some new ones in. Now we're going to give it some juice and see what it does this time. So at this point I don't have a good feeling about this gas line. Now that we got it to kick over on starter fluid, obviously it'll fire. And I don't really want to attempt anything more with this particular starter until we figure out why it is that the pump doesn't seem to have any gas going into it. I think what we're going to do now is move the camera and undo this fuel filter and see what comes out of this. Alright, so at this point we really should have fuel at this filter, but I'm betting we don't. I just have this gut instinct feeling. Let's see what happens if we pop this. Actually, scratch that. We can see fuel actually going in there. So let's try the other side of the fuel pump. So we should be able to crank it over and have it shoot some fuel. Alright, so we got fuel coming out. So the problem is probably in the carburetor then. So as you can see, obviously it needs a starter and obviously it needs a lot of carburetor work. And I think we could get it up and running as far as the engine is concerned. Unfortunately, I do know the reason why this lawn tractor was free. The reason this lawn tractor was free is not because of the engine. The guy told me I definitely could get it running. For 2 years, the guy ran it. The first year he ran it, he said he did not use third gear because it went click, 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 click if he was driving it. Apparently he continued for 2 years to plow with it and mow his yard. And the click, click, click in third gear turned into every gear now makes horrible noises. So at some point we're going to pull this transmission out of this and we're going to rip into it and find out exactly what started as a third gear click and what is apparently caused the whole transmission to now click in all gears. The other thing is I know a ton of you are going to say, mud mower, mud mower, mud mower. I can't. If I can get this machine up and running and get it decent, it's a good $400 to $500 flip up here in Maine. My Ford Ranger, the engine is having all kinds of issues. My wife just recently had to get a different vehicle on the road. I just can't do it at this time, guys. But as soon as I can, we will get an 820 set up on this channel. But I would recommend checking out another channel, Doc Sprocket. He has a Murray. It's a base Murray named Fugazi. And you should go check out his 820 setup that he has in it. The thing is a monster. So free inevitably ends up costing money. But when you get it free to begin with, being able to go and put some money into it and get it up and running, it's worth it. Brand new Chinese carburetor. I'll include a link down below. Ended up working out really good. Watch out though, Chinese carburetors are one of those, either you get a good one or you get a lemon. It's kind of a gamble. Brand new air filter, brand new battery. Otherwise than that, everything else is as I got it. It does need an oil change and a filter. I'll be doing that soon. And I still need to tear the transmission apart and find out what's up with third gear. But I did discover on Sears Part Direct that you can order the gears for the 820 transmission still. So, I'm going to be taking a look at that later, but let's start it up and see if it'll mow. I haven't touched the blades yet, so that could get interesting. you can see, everything's fired up, it's running, it's got everything. Still needs a little working out. I've noticed that the safety switch for the deck engagement apparently is messed up and keeps kicking in and out. As you could see, it's bucking in the transmission, so I've got to tear it apart, find out what gear is gone. But a free Intech that runs with only about $70 worth of parts is pretty good in my book. The rear end is fixable. It's got a brand spanking new deck belt. The deck engages and it cuts. It just needs sharper blades. I think we did okay. Have fun, everyone, and hopefully you get some freebies of your own. Post up some videos. I'd love to see them too. Have a good day.
Hi everyone, so we're heading off to a tractor hunt. This is a sight unseen tractor hunt because it's a freebie. When they're a freebie, I don't usually bother asking them for pictures. I just run and go grab the thing. So here's our description. I have a hydrostatic Cub Cadet. I'm 15 minutes away from you. I mowed with it last year, but it pooped out at the very end of the season and is sitting right in the same spot it broke down in, right off the driveway. It would be an easy grab for you. All right, we're gonna go see what we can go get. So here we are. We haven't done anything to this other than disconnect the kill. We've got this off, not by choice, because it's missing. That's never a good sign when you start getting into these things. I can't get to anything really to turn this over, so we're just gonna hit it with the booster and we're gonna see what happens. Here we go. Your guess is as good as mine. Well, that would be that the starter for some reason isn't engaging, so I guess we're gonna rip some panels off and we're gonna find out what's up with that. So what we have here is, you can see the flywheel. We've unbolted the starter so that we can get to it and be able to see what's going on. On the front right now, I have my tester for the electric clutch, or the PTO, depending on manufacturer. And we can toggle it on and off at this point. And that gives me something to be able to pull against with a pair of chain lock pliers. Now we've uncoupled it from the drive shaft. That way we don't have any interaction with the transmission in back. We're going to pull the spark plug so that we know we don't have anything seizing inside for the compression. So there's our spark plug. There's no liquid on it of any kind. In fact, it actually looks like there's rust on it, which is not a good sign. I think we're going to PB blaster down through the spark plug hole before we try moving this. Alright, so PTO engaged. Now let's try and move it. So obviously, as you can see right now, something in that motor is utterly, totally seized, because that flywheel never flinched at all. Not a good sign. I'll probably soak the entire cylinder with PB Blaster overnight and try it one more time,
So one of my friends was over and he's working on pulling this apart because he was curious and I was too. And he got the head off and you can see there's a whole bunch of buildup in there, but there's no rust like we were actually expecting to see. But it did have a horrific mouse nest on the inside, but nothing that was enough to be able to seize the flywheel. So if we come over here, we can actually see what we did was we mixed up 50% automatic transmission fluid and 50% acetone to try and get it to unseize. And it's all there, which means that the piston rings ended up holding all of it in. So the piston, we're going to take a look at next. Maybe drive it down through with a mallet. Haven't quite decided yet. This might be one of those situations where violence fixes it. Go ahead, give it a wallet.
Or whack it.
Give it a wallet.
I don't want to break your rubber mallet.
No, that ain't moving.
Don't want to break
Here, I'll hold the trigger for the PTO. You try and rock it.
seized.
Well, I'm gonna have to beep that one out, but okay. So, bedposts, really big 7-pound lead mallet equals driving piston to the bottom, cleaning out the cylinder, and it actually rotates over at this point. So Jason's managed to get full movement out of it. We're gonna put a little bit of ATF in it while it's at the upper part and see whether it seals and holds it, and decide whether we want to throw a head gasket back in it. So with the replacement of a head gasket and a little bit of tinkering with replacing the coil and checking everything else out, seems to run pretty good. So before we get in here and we take a look at the blades and the undercarriage and stuff and we see what it looks like, I wanted to show you guys this. I had a company get a hold of me and ask me if I wanted a battery-powered floodlight, and I told them straight outright that I don't do paid reviews. You can send me the tool, I will use the tool, and if I like the tool, I'll tell my viewers about it. But I don't do sponsorships as far as paid. So they sent me this thing free of charge in order to play with. They're about $30. I'll post a link down below if you're curious, but it's really neat. So we punch this button and we got our first setting. Punch that and we really light things up. So we can come down here with light, without light, with light, without light. So we can get it down in here and turn it and leave it there. And supposedly it's got like an hour or two worth of runtime. I think they quoted it somewhere in the 3 to 4 hours, but we all know how that goes. So what do we got down here? We got some rope, some sort of nice nylon twiny stuff up in there. And we got clean on that side. That's nice. And the blades actually don't look too bad. Nice. So we're going to redo those. Oh, and it also apparently has a scare the neighbors kids. And on the back, I found this cool the other day. I actually used this while I was out tractor hunting. It's got a USB charge port right there. Now, the one thing that I don't like is that it's a 24 volt system and the charger for it is 24 volts. So it doesn't interchange with a lot of the other chargers. but I'm sure that's just one of those things of the future. For those of you that are on my Facebook page and you can actually comment because you haven't been censored by YouTube's stupidity about kids being in videos, what do you think? Is this a cool item, or do you like the Aadu camping light that I have better? Which one would you prefer, the Aadu camping light or this for working on a tractor? So there we are, it came back to life. It ended up costing me a head gasket, a coil. I'll include links for that in the description. These right here, if you go to an AutoZone, these are 881 Sylvias. 881 is the light bulb number. So it's got worn down tires on the front. It drives really good. The tires on the back are in really good condition. The paint is what it is. Unfortunately, somebody beat it up quite a bit more than it really needed, and it's got a bunch of chipping stuff going on. There's some here, there's some here. And what's interesting is it doesn't actually look like it got impacted with something. It looks more like it's factory blemish areas or something that started coming out. Now, one thing I did note here, and you want to watch for this, it has been welded with bubble gum in the past. So I went in and I double checked all of these. They're all fine, but it's got some sort of impact from the inside here, so I'm not sure what somebody managed to hit at some point. But everything works fine. The reason why it was so absolutely insanely loud was because the muffler was actually split in half on one side. So I welded that back up and that works perfectly fine now. And there we are. So not bad to start off as a freebie. I got about $100 into it or so. By the time you add in the air filter, the coil, the head gasket, and the cleaning supplies to be able to get it done, I'd say I'm into it about $100 bill. I'll probably list it in the $500 range, and we'll see where it goes from there. I don't normally deal with Cub Cadets, so I'm not sure how the market's going to go with that. So thank you very much for checking in and supporting the channel. If you're new to the channel, hit subscribe and check in. I do these all year, whatever I can get a hold of. Have a good day.
Hey guys, how's it going? I think today's project is going to be this Cub Cadet that showed up last week, and the scenario is the transmission, we believe,